All right, today is December 19, 2019. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. Today, we're going to start planning for the next quarter for the next release of Kubernetes, which is version 1.18, and figure out what the SIG wants to work on and have folks committed to working on it, reviewing it, and so on. If you have anything else that you want to discuss, feel free to add to the agenda at any point. We have a section for PRs that need attention, design reviews, and anything miscellaneous that you want to talk about. Feel free to add. So jumping into the planning doc, we have a new 1.18 tab here. I carried over items from 1.17 that we didn't finish or that we started but didn't finish to pre-populate the doc. And I believe Michelle's been going in and updating some of the API reviewers and reviewers to make sure that we have good coverage here. So let's review these items and confirm if they make sense, make sure their priorities are correct, make sure their assignees are correct, and so on. And if you have anything that you think the SIG should be working on, feel free to add it to the bottom and we'll review it when we get there. So first item here is CSI online offline resizing volume expansion. It sounds like we want to keep it in beta and fix issues. Is that correct, Aman?
Yeah, we want to fix the block expansion and making sure that it gets called on all the nodes. That thing, and there's an item below I have added. It's in the bottom. I have a design. I'm working on it. Discussed with Jordan at the KubeCon about recovering from resize failure. This was another prerequisite for going GA. So these are the two things.
Okay. And recovering from resize failure. So this would be.
This will require a cap.
Okay.
Because it will require a API change.
Okay. And can you add like a comment here just to update like what the required work is and what you think the priority of this is?
I think it's priority 1, I would say pretty high, because we have had resizing too long in beta. I would like to move it to GA.
Okay. That makes sense. And then in terms of reviewers, David and I can help review the API and the code. All right, cool. Thank you. Next item is for storage for Windows, the CSI proxy. Deep started working on that last quarter and got a lot of it done. Next task is to move this proxy to alpha. Deep, are you still the right person to work on this? Looks like Deep is not on the line. Actually, he is, but he might.
Hey, I just joined. Sorry.
Hey, hey, Deep. So we just wanted to confirm if you were able to commit to working on the Windows proxy for this quarter.
Yeah, so that is a work in progress, and yeah, we'll be trying to get that done in 1.18, where we have an alpha by the end of it.
All right, cool. So everything else I think looks good here. P1 seems like the right priority. Next item is addressing snapshot issues. Snapshot was moved to beta in 1.17. There was a lot of refactoring and work that went into that. It sounds like we want to keep it in beta for one more quarter before moving into GA. And in this quarter, we want to focus on bug fixes. Xing, do you want to talk about this? Xing, Sean?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, fix bugs, add more tests, and also we want more people using it and then report issues so that we can make it production ready before we can go GA.
Cool. And we have the cap, we have the priority, and we're going to keep it in beta. Okay, that looks good. Next item is CSI improve handling from recovery and timeout errors.
This was merged actually. So there are some follow-up issues that I still need to fix, but larger like the large piece went in the biggest PR of this.
Okay. Do we still need to track this for 118, or should we just drop it?
I think we should drop it, and the other smaller things are just bugs. I have marked them.
Sounds good. I'm going to mark this as completed from 118, and then we'll remove it from here. Okay, next item is new design for volume file permission handling. This is a major redesign. So before we get there, I think the most important thing is non-recursive, this one. So low-hanging fruit. There's a bunch of problems with volume permissions with the Kubernetes storage subsystem. One of the most painful ones is that a mount can take a very long time if you're using some of these volume permission options, because it recursively goes through every single directory in your volume every time the volume is mounted, and that can delay volume mount for up to 30 minutes in some cases. And that issue is one that we've been meaning to handle. In addition to that, we wanted to kind of reconsider how volume permissions are handled in Kubernetes in general, in a larger scope. But I think we should prioritize the low-hanging fruit here and address the non-recursive volume ownership issue first. We have. Sorry, go ahead, Aman.
Wait, I don't know if Jim is in the call. Yeah, so we discussed the issue of this at the KubeCon, and we also discussed this with some kernel folks and folks who work on CRI container runtime, and like using SwiftFS and having this, or if the kernel could fix it. And what we have learned so far is that a real fix in Linux kernel will take real long time, like it's more than 1 year, and it could ideally never happen, actually, like it could possibly never happen. So nobody in kernel is working on this problem. There has been some ideas thrown around, but it didn't get implemented. And we discussed, there's a SwiftFS project that uses overlay and fuse mounts to do some of this stuff, but that thing is also not very production ready and like ready to be used within Kubernetes. Like there's a fuse daemon that maps the volume. So I think we have to fix this in Kubernetes, and we discussed a design at KubeCon where we agreed that we agreed that we are going to fix this by introducing a new API change in a volume security pod security context. Actually, pod has a security context field, and where user can say what kind of volume change policy he wants. So this is like a early, and so there could be a smart version that it does it checks the permissions of the topmost directory at file, and if it has the right permission, then it exits. It doesn't do recursive chown. It could be always, so that's the current behavior. It always recursively changes the permission, and user could also opt in as never. So that's the design so far we have, and I think there has been no major opposition to it. So we would like to have this. That's the path we are going to take in, I think, 118.
Okay, I think that seems reasonable. And you and Jing are still the right folks to work on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know between you who would be doing the coding for it and who would be doing the review?
Speaking with Michelle, and I would do the KEP, and I think the Michelle has someone who will work on implementation. So for now,
so we'll keep your name down for reviewer and KEP, and then we'll swap out Jing's name for whoever picks this up.
Yeah.
Okay, so next item is the larger item of redesigning volume file permissions. We didn't get too much traction on this last quarter. Is there still someone interested in helping guide this work or this design? Okay, so we're gonna strike this from the Q1 planning and we'll punt it to Q2. For Q1, we'll focus on the low-hanging fruit in terms of volume permission issues, and then we can come back and try to address volume permissions more holistically. And then revisit UID, GID handling is part of the same, so I'm gonna delete that.
Quick question, Saad. This is Chris.
Sure.
On number 6, does that also include the scope of SE Linux, right? Because it's the exact same problem where if you're using SE Linux, it's recursively applying the SE Linux context.
Yeah. So, Hemant here. So to answer that one, I think Jan has a Jan and we discussed how to solve this for SE Linux. It'll be solved differently for SE Linux. And
I feel like it could be similar though, where if you're specifying, hey, don't make this change, in the pod security policy, or in the pod security context, you could also you can set the security context to use, right? So that still falls similar into the category. So if someone has a specific need for this, in my environment, I might just ask them to, hey, we're going to give you permission to use a specific context, and then you can set it to not change. And so it could follow the same pattern.
We are planning to solve this, the SE Linux, by using when the volume is mounted, the first mount happens by using mount O context, and that's the plan. O context is an O1 operation, so it's pretty fast.
Okay.
And we no longer have to do chcon. We have some issues, like how do we know that O context is required for in particular for Csi drivers? Yeah, but we have a design that we're working on.
Sorry,
do you want to treat that as a separate item to track then?
Okay, I'll add it. I think Jan was supposed to work on it, but he's not here, so I'll just add it as an item. Okay. Yeah. I'll add it. Yeah. Let me add it quickly. SE Linux.
Thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to take off topic here.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that clarification, and thank you, Hemant, for clarifying that as well. Next item is volume expansion for stateful sets. This would be a cross-SIG collaboration type deal where SIG Apps is actually working on it. We're very interested in it. Hemant, are you still interested in shepherding this with SIG Apps?
The problem is that Jordan proposed a way to solve that blocker issue, but the person who opened that is not responding. So I don't know, Siddharth M, who was originally leading that effort.
Okay, so maybe if we could get like Adnan or someone to help find a new owner for this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Gaps needs to find an owner. Do you want to take this as something you want to push with SIG Apps, or are you not interested in that this quarter?
I may not have time actually this quarter to push it because...
That's fair. So anyone else on the call interested in this issue and interested in following up with SIG Apps to push this along?
Saad, this is KK. I'm interested. You can put my name.
So let's put your name down. Could you put your GitHub ID in there as well?
Yep, sure, I'll do that.
Perfect. And then maybe you can sync up with Hemant offline for a knowledge transfer.
Sure.
Cool, thank you. Next item is CSI entry read-only handling. This has been a can that's been kicked down the road. I think Ben brought up it's unclear whether there's actually still work left to be done here, but we need somebody to go in, take a look and review this and figure out if there is still work left to be done and do that work. Is anyone still interested in picking up this item? I don't think John's on the line.
Is there a link to details of what's planned or wanted?
Yeah, there's a GitHub issue where there was a set of issues that were highlighted and what we wanted to do with them. Some of that information may be out of date, so the task here would be to go through that, review, and come up with a new plan for what still needs to be done, if anything. And if there is anything, then go ahead and start working on that.
So I'm a significant user of CSI read only, so I think that issue might be the same one that we talked about a long time ago. I'd be willing to help, but I don't have the time or resources to commit to it.
Okay. Do you want to kind of partially commit and say, I'm going to go look at it and figure out if there's any work to be done, not necessarily do the work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll put you down. All right, cool. Thanks, Chris. Next item is the Csi Driver Api Object, which is used to enable a number of features, including the ability for a CSI driver to automatically have attach skipped if it doesn't support attach, and be able to request pod information from Kubernetes on the mount call. So we want to move this API to GA. It was almost moved to GA last quarter. We'll get this moving along this quarter. Christian has been signed up for this. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's still correct. Yeah.
Okay.
He's on video today, but yeah.
Perfect. Cool. So nothing more here. We're going to move it to GA. There should be a kept for this already.
Yeah, I will update it. Yeah.
Okay. Next item is improving Csi Metrics. I am already working on it for this quarter. I don't know if we need to continue to track this for next quarter. But we can leave this item here and drop it if we figure out that there's no further work that needs to be done here. I'll keep it assigned to myself. Next item is issues related to volumes. Issues related to assuming volumes are mount points. Issue number 72347. This was a issue that we've been looking for someone to pick up and help fix, but we haven't been able to find an owner. It is important for CSI ephemeral volumes. Anyone interested in helping debug and fix this issue? Okay, so we're gonna scratch that from Q1, and if it surfaces as a major issue, we can reassess. Next item is volume snapshot namespace transfer design. This is something that has been ongoing for a while. We want to provide some mechanism by which both volumes and snapshots can be transferred from one namespace to another. This is useful in a number of different user scenarios. John had started a proposal here, but I'm not sure if he's able to commit to it. Is anyone interested in picking this up and helping drive this design?
Hi, yeah, I'm interested in that.
Okay, and could you put your LDAP down? Is that M. Hendricks?
Yep.
Okay. Great, and if you could put your GitHub ID, that would be great.
Okay.
And then maybe we can sync up offline, me, you, and John to talk about this.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Next item is CSI volume health. There was progress made in terms of getting a cap out there. Xing, do you want to commit to this and have Nick commit to this for
Yeah.
one?
I synced up with Nick yesterday. Definitely we'd like to get the cap merged.
Okay.
And hopefully start coding. It's been there for a while.
Yep.
So I don't know if we can target alpha.
Give it a shot.
Could try, yeah.
So let's call it alpha for this quarter. Switch that to now. So we'll need a cap here, cap number, and
I think, oh, it's not there? We have a cap.
cap is what I think the enhancement issue is the thing that's missing.
Oh, okay. I'll make sure that we have an enhancement issue.
Perfect. And Nick is still the right person to work on this?
Yeah, he's still interested. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Shane. Next item is volume group API. This is a big item, and I think it's going to unlock a lot of interesting functionality. I think there has been question about whether volume spreading should be part of this API or not, and there's a related, there's volume groups, and then there's storage pools. Do we have storage pools?
That's number 25. I think Patrick added that one. Storage capacity tracking.
Okay.
So Patrick also has a cap. There are two caps.
Got it.
One.
Can I rename this to storage pools, or let me prefix it just to make
I think, and there is a storage pool inside that cap as well.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of keep these two together.
Okay.
And in terms of priority, maybe call these 2 for the quarter instead of 3.
Okay.
Is that accurate, or?
Yeah, I'm fine. So basically this quarter for volume group, we just want to come up with the design. So it's been discussed for quite a while. So I'd like to put together a cap and make some progress.
And same thing with storage pools as well?
I think that one, Patrick is, he has been updating his cap. So I'm pretty sure he wants to bring that to alpha.
Okay.
So it's probably okay. I think he's pretty eager to get that one done. It's just, it's very complicated. And then also we need to consolidate the 2 caps. And then I think there's also, a third issue that he made. I didn't read the latest update. He may need 2 caps just to, I think he probably mentioned that there's ephemeral volumes and there are like two aspects of this cap. He may need 2 caps for that one either. So I'm not sure if he added another one or just to track them together.
I see.
Looks like it's just one.
Got it. Okay, so okay, so we've got both of these. One of them is going to be moving, just going through design. The second one's going to try to move to alpha. Both of them are, this one needs a enhancement issue. This one needs a cap. Okay, that looks good. And we talked about, no, we haven't talked about generic data populator yet. So generic data populator is, if you noticed on the PVC object, there is now a data source field, and that data source field supports a handful of types today. Those types include a snapshot as a data source. Also, you can have a PVC as a data source, which enables volume cloning. We want to open up this field for generic use, such that even if the underlying storage system, such that the thing that provisions the data on the volume could be different from the thing that provisions the volume itself. You can imagine, for example, a volume that gets provisioned by some storage system and then a application that fills it with the content from a GitHub repo before it is made available to a pod to use, or any other combination where you have a generic data populator. So it's a powerful API. The tricky bit is figuring out how we will make sure that the volume is not made available for general pods to use until it's been populated, but make it available to populator pods to fill it with data. And that's a pretty tricky bit of design work that needs to be done. Is anyone interested in owning that? Okay, so I'm gonna mark this as no owner for this quarter. And if anyone is interested in picking it up, let me know and we can assign you.
So I think this is definitely something that the data protection working group will be interested in.
Yes.
But I just don't know if I can commit as an owner yet, but probably should talk to John, Andrew, and see.
Yeah, no
if
worries.
they
I
are.
think that's fine. Like, we don't have to assign all the owners for these. I think last quarter we overcommitted the number of things that we wanted to do. So this quarter, I'm okay not committing too many things and having a few things that we commit to and trying to get those completed rather than spread us all too thin. So even if we need to push out some of this stuff to Q2, Q3, I think that's okay.
Okay.
But if anybody wants to jump in and take one of these items, let me know. That sounds good to me.
So quick question about the populators. So there was talk about using populators for volume imports and stuff. Is that going to get delayed behind the bigger design for populators, or would that be a separate item?
Volume imports, and what do you mean by volume imports?
Like if there's a volume on a storage device that is not part of the Kubernetes.
Got it. So, having like a more efficient way.
No PVC for it yet. Opposed to having, yeah.
Yep. So there's a way to do that manually today, and that mechanism is you create the PV object yourself and create a PVC object, and the binding happens. There were talks about using different new fields to make this more efficient, and Snapshot, for example, has ways to do this. Snapshot based API. I'm not sure that the data source field is the right field to enable that. It might be, but for now, I think you could track that as a separate item.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. The next set of items are CSI drivers. We have 4 drivers that are owned by this SIG. Most CSI drivers are owned by kind of the vendor who it builds the storage system. But in this case, there are a common set of drivers which has no vendor ownership. They're generic, and so this SIG owns them. And those drivers are the NFS driver, the Csi driver, the fiber channel driver, and a flex volume adapter driver. All of these need significant amount of work to get them into working condition. For the NFS and Csi driver, we need image building, testing, CI/CD, documentation. Fiber channel still hasn't even been moved from its original location, and there's a ton of work that needs to be done. And the same thing is true for the flex driver. Is there anyone on the call that wants to pick up any one of these? Okay, I'm going to mark these as no assignees for this quarter. And if you're interested in working on a generic CSI driver, let me know and we can assign you.
I would also maybe propose that, like, it's been a couple quarters and these drivers have sort of just been sitting around. I would propose we archive them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If nobody wants to take ownership of it, I think it makes sense to retire the repo. My only concern is if we ever want to migrate the in-tree versions of these drivers to CSI, this will become an issue, but if that happens, we can consider reviving these. But in lieu of having owners, I think that makes sense. Should we instead have items to track the retiring of these repos?
Sure.
Okay, so let's do that instead.
Yeah, you can assign that to me.
Okay.
Could we post some notices on the repos themselves so that people who come there can potentially volunteer who are not part of the meeting, really?
Yeah, so I think what I'll do is I'll send out an send out an email to Kubernetes-dev and also SIG Storage saying that we plan to deprecate and archive these repos due to no ownership. And I'll give it, I don't know, a couple weeks and see if anyone steps up.
Okay. Okay. On a related issue, I'm not sure if folks saw there is a external storage repo as part of Kubernetes Incubator, and the Kubernetes repo admin team wants to retire all of the Kubernetes Incubator organization. And that means everything inside of it, including external storage. The primary project that used to live under external storage was the external provisioner library, and that has since been moved to Kubernetes SIGs. This is the new location for it. The remainder of items here, as far as I can tell, are old external provisioners for various storage systems. And some of them still seem to have activity. So I wanted to bring this up in the SIG to say, hey, we're going to retire this repo. If there's anything in here that you depend on, please let us know, and we can create a new repo under Kubernetes SIGs for you and have you move that content there to continue working on it. Otherwise, we will deprecate this pretty soon. So I've sent out an email on Kubernetes SIG mailing list about this. I just wanted to give everyone a heads up.
Should we also broadcast to Kubernetes dev and users as well?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because I think there's actually, I suspect there's quite a few users of the NFS client and the NFS-based provisioners.
Yeah. Okay, and if that's the case, we're going to need someone to pick that item up and help move it along. Otherwise, this will get deprecated and...
yeah, and maybe add that. Can we add that as another item here?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And we should put, I think we should put Matt Wong as the owner for this, since he is the primary maintainer of the external storage repo.
Okay. That works for me. So Matt Wong. And Michelle, can I assign you as reviewer?
Yeah.
Okay. This is bug fix. I'm going to bump the priority of all of these to 2. Okay. All right, so before we jump into the SIG apps items, let's finish off the items that we have for our SIG. Big item here is moving raw block to GA. I would put that as a P1 instead of a P2. There's two components of this. There's raw block for CSI and raw block for entry. Based on my conversations with Jan, raw block for entry is in much better state than raw block for CSI. The plan would be to try and move both of them to GA this quarter so that we can make one big announcement about raw block and not confuse users. But at the same time, we have delayed the GA of raw block entry for a very long time. So if this quarter it looks like CSI is going to slip for some reason because new issues were discovered, we'll have to decouple this into two and move entry raw block to GA and hold CSI. But my hope is that we can get both. And Jan is the person who's going to be driving this work. And Jonathan from my team can help review this. Any questions or concerns about that one? Okay. Next item is I wanted to ask about CSI migration. I didn't see an item here. I don't know if Deep or Chang or David are still on the line and have any plans for this quarter for CSI migration.
So I know David is trying to work with a SIG cloud provider to get the migrated CSI drivers deployed with the cloud controller manager.
Mm-hmm.
So I think David's going to be working on that. At the same time, though, I think there's still a number of cloud providers that need to move their migration to beta because we only moved GCE and AWS last release.
Got it. So work this quarter is keep it in beta, add new cloud providers, and work with cloud provider working group or SIG.
SIG, I think.
SIG to what was the work item there?
To deploy the CSI drivers as part of the cloud controller manager.
Cool. Okay. And I'm going to put down Deep, Chang, David for this, and sign up to. Okay. Next item is SE Linux recursive permission handling. Looks like this is what Chris brought up above, and we have a separate standalone item for it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I added it just now. Like,
oh, okay, perfect.
So
we got Jan assigned to it. Who do we want to assign as reviewer? Would this be Chris or Aman?
Yeah, I can review it. Anybody else interested can review this.
Cool.
Yeah. We have had issues with 1.16 release broken because of missing Selinux flags in the build itself. So none of the Selinux volumes were like volumes were not being readable. So there's an item that I have for, like, I think Kubernetes, we need to do better testing. Maybe enable the test, E2 test on some Linux based enable distros.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good to me. And then the last two items we have here are items that are ideally owned by SIG apps that we are interested in. So we would need someone in this SIG to help shepherd them. First item here is to address an issue with Pvcs that are created by stateful set. Today there's an issue where if you delete the stateful set, the Pvcs are not deleted. The reason for this is that as a stateful set is scaled up and down, they preserve when it's scaled down, they preserve the Pvcs in case somebody wants to scale back up and they want that operation to happen quickly. But if the stateful set is completely deleted, the same behavior applies, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense because it ends up leaking a bunch of PVC objects that the user has to go in and manually clean up. So the ideal behavior we want is, yeah, it's fine to leave them as you scale up and down the stateful set, but if the stateful set is completely deleted, we'd like the PVCs to be deleted as well.
I think this seems like it should be an optional. I would expect them not to be deleted.
Yeah, same. I agree. And I think in order to make it backwards compatible, it might be something like a flag or an API option to say, hey, I want this to be deleted when it's deleted. So technically, stateful sets falls within the purview of SIG apps. Dave, who was on the call last time from SIG apps, said he would be interested in helping drive this. Does anybody know if that is still the case? Xing, maybe?
Yeah, I think he's still interested in working on this.
Okay, that is excellent to hear. And is anybody on this call interested in helping shepherd it from the SIG storage side, reaching out to Dave, figuring out what the status is, making sure we have commitment, that kind of thing?
I can help with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Xing. I appreciate it. All right, so I think we're good there. Next item is execution hooks for application snapshots. This is, I think, something that the data protection work group is going to be very interested in as a next step beyond just the ability to take a volume snapshot. It's how do you create a volume snapshot, but also ensure that the applications that are using the volumes have been QS'd before that snapshot is taken so that the snapshot is consistent. And there's a kept for this that's already out that was driven by SIG apps. SIG apps is interested in figuring out a way to be able to do application level snapshots. So Xing, are you still the right person to shepherd this? And do you know who would be working on it?
Yeah, so Adnan has already submitted a PR just to get it started.
Okay.
So he said he will continue working on it for a while, and then he's going to hand it over to another person. So I will follow up with them.
Hey, yeah, I'm on the call, by the way.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, yeah. So I sent an initial PR that's still waiting for review. Mostly just setting up an initial Cube Builder project. But yeah, we'll kind of continue working on that and slowly hand it off to someone on my team, Ashish, who will be taking it forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you add the person's name in here? And also add your
yes,
your GitHub ID. Cool. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Adnan. Thank you, Xing. I think we are good here. Okay. So if there's anything else that comes up, feel free to add it to the bottom of the task list and we can review it at our next meeting. Going back to the agenda, looks like there's no PRs that need attention. In terms of design reviews, bug provisioning, Jeff, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's just a reminder that we have as a result of the SIG Storage face-to-face at KubeCon, we have started a KEP for an API for bucket provisioning. There's been some red hatters that have chimed in, and we got some great feedback from Andrew at Google. And we'd love to get input from others as this KEP, goes through the process. And and we just want as much input as we can get on it. So it's really just a heads up that it's out there.
Awesome. Thank you for that update. And yeah, if anybody's interested in what an object storage Kubernetes API would look like, this would be the KEP to help review. So please take a look at that. Please provide your feedback, and hopefully we could get it in some.
Should that one be tracked here?
That is a good point. Yes, it should. Jeff, can we add this item here?
Yes, sure, except my screen's not refreshing, Saad. I don't know what's going on, so I don't see what you're pointing to.
Oh, okay, no worries. I'm going to go ahead and just add it to the bottom of the spreadsheet as an item to track for the SIG.
Okay. Okay.
And so let's see here. We're going to call this, let's keep it P3. And is the goal for this quarter to get the the KEP merged?
When is what's the quarter? When does the quarter end?
It would be end of. So I think code complete is going to be sometime in February, or code freeze, and then the release will be cut sometime in March.
Yes, I mean, that would be awesome if it just depends on the feedback we get and how many changes. Andrew's changes were, I mean, Andrew's suggestions and comments were fairly significant. So it may be that we just get a solid KEP, a solid design by that time. It just depends how it goes.
Cool. That sounds good to me. So I wrote down object storage API here. We're calling it design for this quarter. Jeff Vance is the primary owner. Andrew Large can help review. And we'll keep track of this as we go through the quarter.
Sounds good. Thanks, Saad.
Cool. Thank you. And I think that is all that I had on the agenda today. Is there anything anybody else wanted to talk about? All right. With that, we'll call it, and you'll get 7 minutes back into your day. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Take care.